welcome to another episode of Taco and Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Brunson, and what are we going to talk about today? We are tacoing the Maui Invitational. We've got Austin here from covers Creighton basketball. So our first matchup is Texas Tech versus Creighton. Texas Tech versus Creighton. Not sure what that was, but so we're going to talk about Creighton, get to know them as a team, and just kind of what to expect as we face off. So, without further ado, let me just let you, Austin, just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the people, what you do, what you're about, where you're from, etc. What you want us to know.
Yeah, sure. So, well, Jeff, thanks for having me, dude. I really appreciate it. It's I think we were just talking before we hopped on here that I don't get to talk Creighton hoops that much anymore. So I'm really, really excited to be talking today, and thanks for having me. But yeah, my name's Austin. I live here in St. Louis. I lived in Omaha for about 25 years, but during the pandemic, I moved to St. Louis. So actually from the area. So I just moved back essentially. I moved to Omaha when I was 5, and I lived there up until I was about 30. So just moved away. But yeah, I mean, I started going to Creighton games when I was a kid during the Dana Altman era. And if you follow Oregon hoops at all, you know who that is. A great coach at Oregon. And that was during the Missouri Valley days too. So I used to get like free tickets, through my 7th and 8th grade basketball team. And we would go, down when they weren't selling the place out all the time. And I really fell in love. Those mid 2000s teams were so much fun in our new arena, because they had built a new arena and tore down like the one they played in for ages downtown, and they built a new one. And it's this massive arena, and I simply just fell in love with that team, what they were able to do with Dana at the helm. And yeah, like I said, been a huge fan most of my life. My dad would take me to games before, that 8th and 7th grade year of basketball, getting those free tickets. And I actually became a season ticket holder in 2010. I was a freshman in college, and I paid for my own tickets. I worked as a waiter at a restaurant, and I paid my own way to get tickets. And it's quite funny because I went to the University of Nebraska at Omaha, which is just about 3 miles away from where Creighton's campus is, maybe a little bit less. And I still favored Creighton every step of the way. I wish I could have afforded gone there when I was a kid, but private schools can get a little expensive, so I was not able to do that. But also, a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. I moved back here this last 2 summers ago, and went to a ton of games the last 2 years. Huge St. Louis Blues fan, if you can't tell. It was a fun year watching Poole slam his way through the summer, though. So I really enjoyed that. But yeah, live here in St. Louis with my girlfriend, her son, and my dog, who is like my second child. I love every second of it. And in my free time, I'm a DJ for a couple nationwide parties that tour on the road. So I'm constantly DJing and tour managing these shows across the country. It keeps me pretty busy and away from basketball sometimes. So when I'm able to step away and kind of talk Jay's hoops, I always jump at the opportunity to do so. So leads me into a good point. I do a podcast called Section229 Creighton Basketball Talk with a group of guys, season ticket holders actually, who sit next to me, and we all kind of came together the last couple of years, and just started this podcast. It was kind of like a pandemic era project, and we kind of really had some fun with it. Kind of waiting for our schedules to align this year to get some more episodes out, but we have a really good time with it, and we've built a nice little following within our crowded Creighton community of podcasters that we have. It's a really exciting time to be a Jays fan. So there's a lot of people out there talking about Creighton basketball, and I'm happy to be a part of that community. It's always been something I look forward to every winter, and I'm really glad that we are back here in basketball season, since baseball season broke my heart this year.
Yeah. Are you talking about professionally? Is that what you're talking about? Professional baseball?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, huge Cardinals fan, as every St. Louisan is. Just something you grow up with.
Because I know Creighton has a baseball team, so I didn't know if there was something that happened that maybe prevented them from going to the College World Series, or on the flip side of that, I'm a Houston Astros fan, so I've had a great.
You've had a great couple weeks. I guess maybe not so great now that you guys didn't land Anthony Rizzo, but it's you'll find someone to play that first base.
they've done very well.
Yeah, I don't think you guys need it. I think we should maybe just put it a trade embargo on you guys for a couple of years and just knock you down a couple pegs.
Yeah, the farm system.
Watching the Houston Astros and the Cardinals back in the day were some of my favorite matchups as a kid. So I have a deep disdain for the Astros still in my heart, but I can appreciate a good dynasty. They're a very good team.
As you should. Okay, but we're not here to talk about
That's right. That's right.
Astros and Cardinals. We may have lost some viewers here. Okay, so tell us about Creighton, just the university in general. You've already said it's private. You said they got a new arena, at least around 2010. Is that what you said, or was it before that?
Yeah, the new arena was built in 2003, I believe. So it's been around for a while, but it's still it seems like a brand new facility. They upgrade it all the time. So yeah, I mean, Creighton University really just lays on the north side of downtown, and that's where the arena's at. And it's an NBA style arena. It's really big. It holds about 18,000 people, but I mean, in recent years, the university has experienced some serious expansion on campus. A private Catholic school. It's got a huge, rich tradition in basketball. And they moved to that arena in 2003 because they had a big vision for what this program could be. And then 2013, they made that a reality when they moved to the Big East and they left the Missouri Valley Conference. I mean, they play, like I said, a really nice NBA style arena. It can get rocking in there, and you really wouldn't notice it on the way in. You kind of just be like, okay, this place is just really big, but when it gets loud in there, it gets really loud. It's gone through a number of, of name changes throughout the year, but it's currently called the Chi Health Center, formerly known as the CenturyLink Center or the C-Link, as some fans in our in our realm would call. But I mean, you really wouldn't guess, but Creighton has one of like the best college basketball environments in the NCAA. I mean, like I said, we average over 16,000 per game, which is quite a feat in this day and age to keep selling tickets like they have at such a high level. I think out of the last 10 years, 8 or 9, they've been in the top 10 for average of attendance ranks in the NCAA. So on a good night, they'll cram 18,000, into that arena. But I mean, they average around 16,000 to 17,000 paid per game. So they really, they really are competitive in terms of attendance across the entire NCAA. I mean, you have to remember too, Omaha doesn't really have any pro sports teams. Beyond a couple like major, minor league teams, like we have the Royals AAA team in Papillion, but there's not really not really a high level team that plays. So Creighton truly is the best show in town in terms of high level athletics. I mean, they've been buzzing the last 10 years. I mean, the program is winning at a really high clip. Gregg McDermott has this program in really good shape. All purposes served. This is the highest level of basketball Creighton has played probably in their 100 years of playing basketball in the NCAA. So, and with Nebraska football being pretty dead these days, they truly are the only show in town, and it's made every reason to play Nebraska every year in our non-conference even better because, well, their football team struggles, their basketball team struggles even worse. Fred Hoiberg cannot get that program under control, and we have been romping them the last 12 years. That they've only won once, and there is a deep, deep rivalry that is going to be seated in those two fan bases for a very long time. But yeah, I mean, currently we're ranked 10th in the nation. Got a huge stretch of games coming up in the non-conference, and in my opinion, we're setting up for a really major run this year if Creighton can stay healthy.
Yeah. And so who is Creighton's biggest rival? What gets the fan base up and going to the game? Is there one or is there several or?
Man, I mean, in terms of non-conference opponents, I guess we can start there. I mean, I really would like to think that San Diego State is a team that we keep coming back to and then we just keep having really good games with, especially the last 10 years. There were some games when Doug McDermott, the Doug McDermott area here at Creighton, when we played them, and there were some really high level games that happened then. And we've met them so many times I think we've met them 3 times in early season Thanksgiving tournaments. And we met them in the NCAA tournament last year, which was an overtime game. We ended up winning that. And I really think that San Diego State is probably one of our biggest, if not our biggest non-conference rival. If you talk in terms of conference, we have a long list of rivals in that very small conference. I mean, it is very, very competitive, especially the last, since we've joined in 2013. We're coming next year will be our 10th year, and you could point to any team on that schedule, maybe sans DePaul and St. John's, where we have had some rock fights year in and year out with some of these teams. And it has just been a blast to watch, but we have formed some really deep rivalries. I think probably the biggest in my eyes, at least the last 2 seasons, is definitely UConn, because they have come into our conference, back to our conference, um, and really, really challenged us, but we always end up on the better side. They have not beaten us since they have been back in the Big East. So I think they're really hungry to beat us this year. They're right there in terms of talent with us this year. So those games are going to be great. So if we're talking in terms of this year, I definitely go UConn. But like I said, you could point to any team in the Big East and be like, you know what, they are our rival. Marquette is our rival. Villanova is our rival. Xavier. Butler. I mean, all of those games are just so competitive year in and year out in our conference. So it makes it hard to pick, to be honest.
Yeah, and the Big East, of course, it's kind of known as a basketball conference. Like there's a lot of history with a lot of those teams,
Yep.
even just the ones that you just listed. So,
Absolutely.
absolutely, I can see it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, absolutely. I agree. I mean, it's when you have teams that are able to recruit at very high levels, into this basketball conference, it doesn't only just make for a great season, but it makes for a really, really good end of the season because everybody's there neck and neck right at the end. So those late season games get real intense, and that's what college basketball is all about. It's a great time.
Yeah. Now, is there a memorable game or a game that people like to talk about? Like, remember when this happened, or whether it was last year or 25 years ago. What's the biggest game in the history of Creighton basketball, maybe, or memorable, or however it is that you want to answer that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today, and it's hard because I think Creighton's best days are currently being written. So it's a matter of perspective when you ask this question. Some of the older alums would definitely say, the Missouri Valley days, that era of basketball had some really strong moments under Dana Altman, and they sure did have a lot of great moments. I mean, between games played at our now torn down arena, Civic Center, down in the heart of downtown Omaha, and the Missouri Valley Arch Madness days in St. Louis, they've had some really great times. Especially through the '80s, and through the golden years of the Altman era in the '90s. I mean, of course, you look beyond that, you have to talk about Doug McDermott, Greg McDermott's son, our coach, who's been our coach for over 10 years now. I mean, he's one of the leading all-time scorers in college basketball history, easily the best player to wear the Creighton uniform. He sits at number 6, I think, on the top 10 or the top 10 list of all-time scorers in college basketball. He's got over 3,500 points. I had the privilege of watching all of those games in person, all 4 years. So, I mean, you have to throw his sophomore through senior years into this mix when you talk about this. But I mean, there are some games that he played down the stretch in his career that were just unbelievable. And you can point back to senior day almost every year, in Omaha. His first, his sophomore year, we beat Wichita State at home for the Missouri Valley title, which was our last year in the conference. And on his final senior day, his senior year, he broke the point record and scored about 45 points on his way out. So, and the place was rocking all of those times, all 3 of those seasons. Creighton basketball was just thrown into this realm of being a high major team because of these games. And it's crazy to think about because it was only 10 years ago. I mean, his teams really led the charge in terms of helping us bridge the gap between the Missouri Valley days and our current reality of playing high major basketball in the Big East. Creighton didn't used to attract 4 to 5 stars, and I think those games that I talked about, those senior night games, they built the platform for these dudes to get recruited. We had a bunch of these people come out to these games and see this environment, and they fell in love with that NBA style of college basketball that we bring, in terms of environment. And I mean, that's what I would say is some of our best games. But the last 3 seasons, I think, have been our best. So when you talk about this too, your best games, you kind of have to think about that as well. Beyond, missing the NCAA tournament when the tournament was canceled, we've had 3 straight appearances in the NCAA tournament, which is a huge feat for our program. And once we reached this Sweet 16 one of those years. So those are definitely some of the better games that I can think of in my mind. But like I said, I think our best games are still they're happening right now. I think this year, with how much we have on our schedule, I mean, we go to Texas and play Texas at Texas um here in like
Oh,
a
you'll
couple
win.
couple
You'll
weeks.
win.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a storyline for us too, because one of our a transfer from Creighton plays for Texas, and he was a bedrock of our team for several years. So really looking forward to that. I think some of these early season games are going to be great for us, and I think they're going to work their they're going to work their way into, holding a lot of weight. When you get into this conversation about talking about the all-time games, I think some of those games are going to come this year for sure.
Oh, well, I can tell you right now, Texas Tech fans will they will be the biggest Blue Jay fans when you go to and play Texas. I can promise you that.
Well, hey,
We will
we'll need
be
all the help. Yeah, we'll need all
we
the
will
help
be
we can
rooting
get
you
there.
on. So that is our hated arrival, if you want to put it that way, for several reasons. But
Everybody can hate Texas. It's okay. I mean,
that's
as a former Nebraska football fan, I hate Texas as well. So
yeah, they make it easy. They make it easy.
yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. So you talk, let's go ahead and flow into, you talked about, or you mentioned Greg McDermott, or the head coach. And so so when Texas Tech fans are watching and they get ready for the game, what kind of style of play does he run, if it's noticeable? You mentioned it kind of NBA style, but what does that I guess mean?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's been a bit of a roller coaster last 2 years in terms of identity for us. 2 years ago and every year before that, we were an offensive juggernaut. Most would say a typical Greg McDermott team, high power, transition offense, shooting the three and really getting the ball down the floor. And that's been his brand of basketball since coming to Creighton. Our motto that they have adopted is let it fly, the let it fly mantra. Anywhere in the gym range is what we like to call it. We have a bunch of dudes that can shoot the three really well. We're still kind of getting there in terms of our consistency, but it's always been shooter you. So, I mean, last year with the new pieces we had and the injuries we had, the let it fly moniker kind of took a back seat, took a season off, but still effective and won a ton of games. But they had to really adjust in terms of what they were doing. Our defense evolved. They got really good at guarding, and this specific group of core guys in our starting five really learned how to guard instead of relying on scoring at will to win games. This year we're slated to have probably a good mix of both. And so far, Creighton is filling it up on the offensive end. I mean, they put up plus 90 the last 2 games. I mean, granted, we're playing some pretty beater teams, but their transition offense and everything you look for to check the box to see if these guys are clicking at a high level early on, they're checking every single box. They're shooting it really well. Their 3-point average isn't really where it should be, but they're getting into just kind of feeling each other out. They lost one of their starters, their senior leader, over this last season. We have a transfer who came in, who's going to kind of fill that role this year. So they're still kind of getting a little acclimated to each other. And our point guard was out for half of the back half of last season. So really, we have 2 players trying to fit into this, 5-man rotation, in the starting lineup that just haven't had a whole lot of time together, but the core 3 really have. So, I mean, what you're going to see us run the floor, as most Creighton teams do. This team, I think, is going to get back to that let it fly type attitude they have so far this year. But when you slow down and get them out of that, they really work in the post through Ryan Kalkbrenner, who is our 7'1" stud inside. His inside out game has evolved too, and he's slowly adding a 3-point shot to his arsenal. But offense is always going to move through Kalkbrenner and Kaluma, who's our other stud on the offensive end. All 5 starters can really score, though, so it's interesting to see what kind of defensive schemes that Texas Tech will throw at us. But I really think that you're going to see this team come out and really try to live as much as they can in transition. And when Texas Tech can slow them down, they'll start to evolve in that half court game. Defensively, I think you're going to see a really, really unusual kind of team for Creighton. Someone, a team that can actually guard and run in transition. So um, Ryan Kalkbrenner is truly he's probably the best shot blocker that Creighton's ever seen. So one thing that I always like to see, early in the season, especially since he's been here, is how well he can block shots and how well that can, how much that can get us into transition. And not only that, but he's kind of a freak of nature. He's so big and so long. He's so disruptive on the defensive end, and I think we've got a really good mix of that this year in our starting five. And they're causing a bunch of turnovers. Obviously, the level of competition has not been quite where we need to be to judge this, but they're getting out in those lanes and really being active on the defensive end, which is lending itself to them getting in transition pretty well. So I think it's going to be a really hard for Texas Tech to slow us down. I hope they don't. I hope we're able to get out and really run as much as we can, because when we can get in transition and do the things that we like to do, we're one of the most lethal teams on offense in the country. And I think at some point this year, whether if it's early or late in the season, you're going to really see them fill it up on the offensive end, and you're going to see them fill it up really early and get teams off their heels.
Yeah, and I don't think there will be, Texas Tech in game 4 is going to be way different than, let's just say, Texas Tech in the tournament. So you're definitely getting Texas Tech at I don't know if the right time is the right word, but I guess a good time. The fact that this is probably the youngest team Texas Tech has had in a while. There's a lot of freshmen, a lot of underclassmen, where in the past few, even going through Chris Beard to Mark Adams, their philosophy was, hey, we need to stay old. And so they would bring in grad transfers and things of that sort. And so where this year we have several freshmen that are key contributors, and then just underclassmen in general. So definitely haven't gelled yet. We're definitely turnover prone. So all signs point to maybe a rough day for the Red Raiders potentially.
Sure.
We kind of got a tough draw compared to some of the other teams in the tournament, but it is what it is. You play who you play, and then Texas Tech will be better for it. But I think once tournament time is come, and then we've gone through the Big 12 gauntlet, then the team we battle tested, and should we match up again, I think it'd be a much different game. Whether the result is the same or not, I don't know. It'll just be a different game.
Sure, yeah, and I can see that too, especially when you add a bunch of new kids into your program that haven't been there. But yeah, I mean, you guys did get a pretty rough draw, I mean, Texas Tech, Creighton, Louisville, and Arkansas all on one side of the bracket. I mean, sans Louisville, they're having a little bit of a tough start out there, but Arkansas is playing at a really high clip too. So if you lose, you're gonna play Louisville. I think that's kind of the consensus. I don't think Louisville's gonna pull that out. So at least if you lose to Creighton, or if we lose to Texas Tech, at least we have a guaranteed game there. So
it looks that way. Yes.
It's just crazy how loaded the bracket is for Maui this year. I mean, it's just top to bottom. It is just stacked. And of course, there you see San Diego State, what I mentioned earlier. We're always seeing them in these, early season tournaments. And I have this feeling that we're going to see them again, and they're going to want some revenge for that overtime loss in the NCAA tournament last year. So I'm praying that is not the case, because I would really like to enjoy my Thanksgiving that day. So hopefully that's not the answer.
Absolutely. Well, let's just go into, so what we expect to see, and you've kind of touched on this, but just who are the studs, who is maybe Tech going to have a hard time guarding, or however it is that you want to put it, but who are the big dogs in this Creighton? And of course, you've already mentioned the center, and he's going to be a handful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ryan Kalkbrenner is nearly automatic around the rim so far this year. Not only this year, but last year too. And he is a menace on the defensive end. Big East Defensive Player of the Year last year, and already this year. I mean, if you talk about efficiency and being in transition and scoring a lot of points, Ryan is on a current streak of hitting 19 shots in a row. So he's really clicking early this year. I think within the last 10 minutes of our game, or the first 5 minutes of our game last night, he had 10 points and they were just easy bunny hops into the rim. So he's poised to have a huge year. Everyone's had a really hard time containing him on the block, and he is just evolving his game year over year so much. And that's kind of the Greg McDermott motto. When you come to Creighton, you start and you finish way better than when you came in the door. And he develops bigs like no other. I mean, he's had some pretty raw kids come into this program with just, raw skill sets, and he's been able to shape them. And Ryan Kalkbrenner came in, a little bit ahead of some of the other folks that we've had come in at this position. But Ryan's going to turn himself into a NBA prospect by the end of his career at Creighton. I believe he's got one more year left with us, and he's been great. So obviously you have to watch out for him. But I mean, the rest of our starting lineup is just you look at up and down the lineup, and it's hard to pick a guy where you don't have to worry about. I mean, Baylor Shireman, we picked him up out of the transfer portal this last year from San Diego State, probably the most coveted recruit coming out of the portal, and we landed him, and he was the Summit Player of the Year last year. They I think they knocked Providence, or almost knocked Providence, out of the NCAA tournament, early in in the tournament last year. And he's really good. He fits the offense perfectly. He's a great passer. He's a great shooter. He'll pull up from the logo probably. I mean, we've played 3 games. He's pulled up from the logo probably about 7 or 8 times so far. He's really got in the gym range, as a lot of the kids do on this team. But he also can create and pass, which is like the ultimate combo. When you have range, you can take guys off the dribble and create something for somebody else. So he's been a handful for some of these teams early in the season. I'm really interested to see how he does here in the next couple weeks, especially since we're playing you guys next Monday. We're going to get a really good test early, finally, of what this team can do. But Ryan Nenhard can really create in the half court as well. I mean, he and Baylor are both great passers, and they see the floor really well. Like I said, look for them both to really dictate tempo, run the floor, and get Creighton set. But I think this team, with these two dudes running in transition, the way they pass, the way they see the floor, the way they both shoot, they could be one of the most lethal teams in transition in all of D1 basketball. By the end of this year, I think they probably will be. But the guy that you really need to watch for beyond Ryan Kalkbrenner is Arthur Kaluma. He's our go-to guy for a bucket. I mean, you can make the case that Trey Alexander, one of our other guards, is as well, but he Arthur has really evolved his game from this last year to this year. I mean, we have so many guys who can finish around the rim, but Arthur is certainly our guy at the top of that list. He's an above the rim kind of player. He's evolved his mid-range game over this last season to really round out like his offensive toolbox. But he's been the complete package. He's going to have a monster year. He finished last year super strong. He had an incredible performance. We were super outgunned versus Kansas last year in that final game that we played. We were really banged up. Kalkbrenner, tore his ACL. Ryan Nemhard was out with a leg injury as well. And Arthur really led the way. I mean, he evolved his game late last season too, in the last couple games that we played, and his back to the rim game has really taken off. I mean, he is shooting well. He's taking people off the dribble and just doing dangerous things to the rim. So I would say that during this game, you're probably going to see him bust out a couple, above the rim plays where you're going to go just kind of sit back and be like, whoa, oh my God, like that kid can really play. We see that 2 or 3 times a game, just as it is, against some of these beater teams, early in the season. But I think as this season goes on, he's going to really start shooting up the draft boards of a lot of NBA scouts. I mean, he is playing that well, and he's got that good of a skill set where he could elevate his game to being a lottery pick if Creighton just can win all season and he can just showcase his talents. There's a lot of potential in that starting lineup, but I think Arthur Kaluma definitely takes the cake.
Yeah, and then Texas Tech fans, they'll recognize the name Nemhard. His brother played for Gonzaga.
That's right.
when and I believe when Tech played them in the tournament a few years ago, we knocked Gonzaga out. Then unfortunately we lost the championship game that year. That still kind of haunts us a little bit. We were so close yet so far. So that's his young. Cause I believe he's already graduated.
Yeah, I
Have a good
believe.
year.
Yeah, I believe he got
I have
drafted by the Pacers. If I
okay.
believe, if I'm not thinking wrong, but he's somewhere out there. I can't remember who he went to. I know he got drafted though.
Yeah, okay. I was pretty sure that he was exhausted his eligibility. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have to face another Nimhard for at least at
Yep.
least one more
Yep.
game, and then we'll see what happens. But okay, so let's see, we're winding down. So I kind of mentioned in my little notes to you. Of course, Texas Tech played. Yes, well, for the purposes of this podcast yesterday, if you're watching it, it's going to be a few. But anyway, they played on Monday,
Sure.
and then Creighton plays on Thursday. And so my question kind of was to you was, and maybe this is good for both teams actually, because Texas Tech can definitely actually ask this question to head coach Mark Adams. He says we need to practice. And so I guess my question to you was, are you good with that? Would you have rather had the week to prepare, or are you good with keeping the routine and go ahead and play on Thursday and so forth?
It's a good question, and it's hard to know what's going on inside the mind of Greg McDermott because I think he really just has to figure out, what his team needs, on a year-to-year basis. But overall, I think Greg schedules really well. I mean, I think he's of the mindset, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think he's of the mindset that taking too many days off necessarily isn't like a good thing. So I don't think this team ever really tries to take a break unless they really get into a bad scheduling blind. I remember like a couple of years ago, like we had 9 days off in January. And nobody wants to do that, but like any coach, he likes to keep them fresh. But notoriously, we excel in early season situations in the schedule because we usually are playing a really steady stream of games. I mean, by Thursday, I think we'll have played 4 games, and then we have 3 games in Maui back to back to back. So it worries me a little bit because that's by the end of that you're playing 7 games in about 3 weeks, and early that can be a little much. But I think the way that they've been able to rest some of the team early in these games, just simply because we've been just kicking ass. Like we've really been able to sit people down. So I feel good about that, and I think the really good thing about that is Creighton is extremely deep this year. So even if we get into a situation where we are playing a lot of games, we're going to have fresh legs either way. This is probably the deepest Creighton team that we have had in a very long time. So I think Greg's going to really take advantage of that and kind of rotate some people out, so we can keep things fresh while we're in Maui. But I think the first game you'll see them kind of stick to their starting five and maybe like 2 or 3 rotation players. Um, I would have liked to maybe taken Thursday off just to give the guys a couple more days, but I mean, I don't get paid the big bucks to dictate that, unfortunately. But I always like a slow and steady approach. It's not bad that we have that game on Thursday, but maybe would have been a good idea to take it off, to prepare for the 3 games in 3 days. I mean, those guys are going to be taking ice baths. I can't ever imagine like as being a college basketball player and playing 3 games in 3 days. Like it just sounds like I played basketball in like high school, and like I think like late game late at night and then early morning practice did more to me than any physically anything I've ever done in my life. So I can't imagine doing that 3 days in a row at a really high pace. So hopefully they'll stay fresh. They're young kids, so hopefully they'll stay fresh and stay loose. That's what we hope for.
Yeah, I remember those early morning basketball practices. They were they were the worst.
We did
Sorry.
5:30 a.m. That's what time we had to be in the gym. I don't know how I did that when I was a kid. It seems criminal, but here we are.
That is early. Okay, let's just get to the game itself and not necessarily prediction, but just kind of like if Creighton wins this game, what most likely happened? for them to do?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, good question. I mean, I think, like I said earlier, if they get out in transition and really dictate tempo against Tech, I mean, plain and simple, I think that'll really be the deciding factor in this game. If Ryan Kalkbrenner and Arthur Kaluma come to play, it's going to be a tough night for Tech. I mean, they're absolutely motivated to run through this part of their schedule because they have a ton of huge games coming up. They can't drop too many of these. So they're really going to need early season wins to get them buzzing around college basketball and people to take them seriously. So I think you're going to really see an inspired effort from these guys. But early, the key is transition. Creighton can get Baylor Shireman, Ryan Nemhard run the ball up the court, letting Trey Alexander, kind of find his way in there as well. Create in the open floor, let those two distribute, let them run. Creighton can really bury Texas Tech. And I'm not just Texas Tech, but they can bury any team. I mean, that isn't scoring as a high level as Creighton can at this point in time. So I think it's going to be a game of tempo. I really do. I think Texas Tech definitely has the tools that they need to kind of keep up with Creighton. It's just if they can keep up score wise, I think is going to really, be the separator here. I mean, first team to 80 is usually what we say for Creighton in these situations where, these early tournament games where, you're in a smaller gym, you might feel a little bit more comfortable. You can really let it fly. I mean, you don't really have you have a lot at stake here, but the one thing they need to do is just come in and loosen up. And I think if they can come in, loosen up, get in transition and just have some fun, I think they're going to really turn some eyes in this tournament.
All right. Well, well, don't be surprised if you don't score 80.
Exactly. I mean that I always try to be optimistic about teams that play in the half court. Like I know you guys don't get up and down the floor too hot, too quickly, but 80 80 sounds like a good place to put Creighton at this point in time with how well they've been scoring. So if we can get them out and get them out of their game, I think that's really how this game can be won pretty early.
Yeah. So now, if on the flip side, if Creighton loses, then what happened?
Yeah, I think it's really, really just a matter of leadership. I mean, the one thing to realize about this Creighton core group of guys is they're really young. Trey Alexander, Arthur Kaluma, Ryan Nemhard, all sophomores. So those dudes, and not only to mention, but Ryan Nemhard missed half of last season. So really, he's still kind of, played as many games as a freshman. The only senior starter on this team is a transfer. So that's Baylor Shireman. So in terms of leadership, it's a little bit of rough. And my fear early in the season, while expectations are really high, is who will vocally lead this team and get them straightened out when for lack of a better way of saying it, for when shit hits the fan inevitably in some of these, high level games early in the season. Trey Alexander can be that guy, but we've got a lot of guys on this team that aren't really vocally driven people in a sense. So it's really hard to tell who the outright leader of this team is. But I think this team, like last year, they'll falter a bit in trying to figure out who that leader is, but I'm optimistic they'll figure it out. Early season could be an issue, but I mean, I see Baylor Shireman coming in as a senior, probably someone who was going to lead this team. But like I said, you guys are the first true test of the year. So, we've played St. Thomas, North Dakota, Holy Cross. We've got UC Riverside on Thursday. Not a whole lot to go off of in terms of serious competition, which is fine. So this team needs a few games to get comfortable with each other, and I feel good about where they are going into this game. But Creighton struggles to win games when they don't shoot the three very well, especially in years past, and especially last year. Maybe not so much the years before that, or especially last year. But I mean, truly, this team thrives on two things: transition offense, letting it fly. If those two things don't work out at the gate, it's going to turn into a grinder, which kind of favors Texas Tech. But I feel good about where our half court offense is. So, I think this one's really going to be a toss up. And I think it's really about who's going to win the tempo battle. So if Texas Tech can get Creighton into, a half court game where they're not extremely comfortable, that could be the way forward.
All righty. Well, I definitely appreciate the information. That's really all. That's kind of the end of my question list. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to do the same. And, we'll give the, if any Creighton people want to tune in, if they want to, I guess, learn a few things, then we'll give the Creighton people what they want. So what questions do you have for me from the Texas Tech side?
Yeah, I always love to ask about former coaches, but I mean, do you miss Chris Beard? I mean, was the transition from Beard to Mark Adams an easy one for you guys? I mean, I know Mark Adams is on the staff before, right?
Yes.
I mean, making the Sweet 16 as your first year as the head coach is pretty crazy. So, yeah, I think you guys should be really proud of that. But I mean, what was it like having that high level of success with Beard and then just kind of watching him slip through the cracks and let the reins being taken by somebody else?
Oh, it was an easy transition. Just by the way that Beard left, right? We felt betrayed. He had kind of um, he's very good in public relations. Like he's very good, kind of a rah guy, and we uh, bought it hook, line, and sinker. We accepted him into our community. He was one of us. Type. And of course, he had the success. He was given a very strong core group of players from Tubby Smith before, after he left. So we had a strong core. He was able to keep them together. Credit to him for doing that. And I also think that they wanted to stay together. They're very good friends even to this day. And they went to his second year. They were Elite Eight. Right. A good portion of that team was that core group. They were seniors at that time. I think Odiase got an additional year. So he was there for the Final Four run, the following year. So obviously we thought he was here. We thought he was a lifer. He felt like a West Texan. He talked like a West Texan. He did things like a West Texan. And then, Texas came calling and he left. And so, other things as far as the transition, that was extremely easy. Mark Adams is absolutely beloved. He's like a grandfather, but
I love it.
a grandfather that's a Gold Glove boxer. He's a Gold Glove boxer, and he's very hard. He coaches very hard. He's very obviously defensive minded. They were number one in KenPom defensively last year. That was his first year. Of course, we had a senior team, a lot of senior transfers. We were very long. Even for the height of some of the players, their wingspan was longer than their height, which is a little unusual. But he was able to mold them into an absolute defensive juggernaut. And so we expect something similar, maybe not quite as effective this year, just because we're not as long and we are very young. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're not number one defensively. That's kind of a hard
Yeah.
stance to have. Oh, you're not number one. What happened, coach? So, but I would expect, top 10, top 15 defensively, pretty easily attainable for him. Even with the youth and the lack of length compared to the length that we had last year. And so but the transition was super easy. Mark Adams is absolutely beloved. We knew that he was the mastermind behind the defense. It wasn't Chris Beard, it was Mark Adams. I don't know if everybody knows that, but it was. And then where Beard was more in charge of the offense, and the offense was very kind of stagnant really while he was here, and it's been stagnant at Texas with the motion offense. It's just kind of it's outdated a little. It's hard to teach, and with as much turnover as he likes to do it, I don't know how sustainable it is, where he benefited greatly from the core group that he kind of inherited. And so they were together, kind of for that second year in a row, and they went to Elite Eight, and then there were several that actually stayed, like Jarrett Culver and some freshmen for that second year, for that final run year. So that's where he benefited. But really, ever since then, they were ranked high, but they would fall below expectations. Where Mark Adams doesn't quite have the Beard, respect yet, so we're ranked low, and then we tend to rise up. And so,
Yeah, it's I always love asking that question because Creighton has had such an interesting time, letting go of Dana Altman, he left initially to go to Arkansas and took the job and then quit like a week after he took it and then came back to Creighton. So we kind of know what it feels like to be betrayed like that. It's going to Texas seems like the ultimate stab in the heart. You know what I mean? That just seems like the ultimate betrayal as like a Red Raiders fan. You know what I mean? Just like what I mean, obviously it's hard to turn down that job because I'm sure he's getting paid a lot more, but God, I mean, you call it, I mean, we thought Dana was an Omahan too, I mean, we thought he walked like us, he talked like us, he was us. It's hard to stomach those kinds of people going away. But I love to ask you about what you think for the Maui tournament in terms of what Texas Tech might be able to do. I mean, this is our first time in Maui, and I think it's definitely our first time in the last 15 years we played in Maui, so it might be our first time. I wasn't able to find that, but our fan base is really buzzing about what this tournament could be. But I'd love to hear about what you think about the opportunities for quality wins next week. Give me your outlook. What do you think Texas Tech's going to do?
Oh yeah, it's probably a mixed bag. We're definitely excited, and we'll have some fans there that'll travel. Absolutely, Texas Tech fans travel very well, actually, and so I think there's some cautious optimism just because we know that we're young. We're not a finished product yet. The Maui Invitational is not our goal. It's to win the NCAA tournament at the end of the season. And so being so early, we're only going to be 3 games in. And so it'll be our 4th game that we play when we play Creighton, which is, number 10, very worthy of their ranking, obviously, if they're not maybe even underranked, possibly. And so you always look forward to games like this because this is kind of a beginning barometer of where you're at, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, play these cupcakes. We've won handily. On Tech's side, we have turnover issues right now because we are so young. We have several freshmen that we actually rely on that are really good players, potential NBA players. If they keep improving and growing, kind of a normal course, they're very highly rated. Pop Isaacs has a great shot, can shoot the 3. We have Elijah Fisher, was the fantastic player from Canada. He's a freshman. He should be a senior in high school, but he reclassified and then committed to Tech. Then we've got Daniel Bacho, who is greatly improved. Is going to be a force. He's not a go-to guy like your center. But he's a fan favorite for whatever reason, excuse me. And in fact, last year when he would play kind of sparingly last year and kind of basically kind of put in some minutes here, but he would get a basket or a dunk, and then or the arena DJ would play Macho Man, like Macho Man. And it was fantastic, because it kind of rhymes. And
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, he became a fan favorite. So if he gets a dunk, it's a block, the crowd goes nuts. It's a ton of fun. The atmosphere at the what we call the USA, used to be United Spirit Arena, but everybody just assumed that was the airline, but it's not. There's a local chain here. It's United Supermarkets Arena, still USA, so it still works.
Sure.
I think we all like United Spirit Arena,
Yeah.
but because you got supermarkets and you have
Yep.
your jokes, but it's the USA, is what we call it, and the atmosphere of the past several years. Chris Beard, is definitely a part of that. I'm not going to take that away from him, but I think him leaving in the way that he left, and then that Mark Adams is so beloved, it's picked up a notch. It is an absolute, it's an event here in Lubbock, Texas. If you have tickets, you have to go. There's a wait list to try to get season tickets. It's unbelievable how fun it is compared to there were, you go back to, and Bob Knight was a lot of fun when he was here.
Oh yeah.
The crowds would come, especially when he's trying to break his record, right? The 800, I think 801 win at the
Yep.
time. Obviously that's been surpassed, but at the time it was fun, and he had good teams and good players, and reaching the tournament fairly, not every year, but fairly consistently. But what Tech has become, because his son took over and it just took a nosedive.
Sure.
There were probably times when there were maybe even 100 fans in the arena. It was just the dark days of Tech. We were last place in the Big 12 pretty consistently. Tubby Smith comes in, we have Billy Gillespie. We have, coaches just came and went. And then we hired Tubby Smith, maybe the greatest hire we've had, set us up for success. He ends up leaving for Memphis for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But supposedly he regretted it later on. Doesn't matter. Chris Beard kind of elevates us. And then Mark, here we are, Mark Adams. Absolutely beloved. And of course, he's a graduate of Texas Tech, so that obviously helps. He definitely feels like one of us, even though we thought maybe Beard might have been. But as far as tournament, it's definitely going to be a barometer. I kind of got off track.
No, yeah.
I mean, we feel like we got a tough draw.
Sure.
Obviously Creighton first, and then Arkansas and Louisville being the same bracket. Compared to what we have, Ohio State and then San Diego State.
It's crazy to think about it too. It's crazy to think about it because the last time that we saw you guys was in a early season tournament, and I feel like our paths don't cross that often. But that same tournament, we also played San Diego State. But that 2019-2020 season, was really good for us, and that game what meant a lot to us to win in Vegas, especially in overtime, because the game before that we got absolutely rocked by San Diego State by 30 on Thanksgiving night. And I remember sitting in my hotel in my hometown after Thanksgiving dinner, just like watching and just like being like, this is the worst Thanksgiving ever. I mean, that game literally haunts my nightmares, but we bounced back with a really good win that night after. I think you guys were a little banged up during that game. I think one of your star players was out that game, but yeah, that was a huge game.
Shannon, I think.
I think you're right. I can't remember exactly who it was. These games start to mix together so often, but that was part of Marcus Zagorowski's coming out party that season. He had like 30 points and a bunch of insanely clutch plays down the stretch in that game. So I think we might have a nice little rivalry brewing up here. Hopefully this game's a grinder and we'll turn it into another good game. And I have the same feeling about Wisconsin because we used to meet them in a bunch of early season tournaments. Same with San Diego State. Like you guys, San Diego State and like Wisconsin, we've met them a whole bunch of times early season, and I'd like this one to be a good one so we can continue, maybe get a couple bye games. Maybe we can come visit Lubbock. Maybe you guys can come visit Omaha and experience the true cold there during the winter and really get you guys out of your element there a little bit.
You can keep the cold. You can keep that to yourself. It does get cold here, but it's very sparingly. It's the coldest month here in West Texas is actually February. It's kind of crazy. Maybe that sounds crazy. I don't know, but I say that
definitely the coldest here too.
Okay, and so my wife doesn't always believe me, but then February comes and there's like a 2-week span when it's freezing temperatures. But yeah, I'm certainly not going to compare the West Texas cold to Omaha, or I guess you're in St. Louis, but the Omaha cold, that's
hey man, there's times during the February stretch of home games that we have where walking into the arena feels like there's knives being shoved into your face. So it does not feel good, but that it hardens us Omaha people, so it's not a bad thing. It just builds character.
Right. It builds character. Just like the West Texas heat in the summer.
That's right.
It builds character. All right. You have anything else?
I think that's it, man. I think the one thing I have left to say is I'm really excited to see how Kalkbrenner and Bacho match up here. I think that'll be a nice little back and forth. I always like seeing players from overseas come and play college ball too. So I'm excited to see what Bacho's got to offer. I watched a little bit of tape earlier. He looked like he really can get up and down the floor for how tall he is too. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they match up, and I think that'll be a nice battle down low and a good test for Kalkbrenner for sure early in the season.
Yeah, it could be. But Bacho's he's not the focus. I, I guess Calk is that fair?
Yeah, yeah,
Name.
yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to mispronounce him. I don't want to be disrespectful, but where Bacho is, he's more obviously a role player. He's only a sophomore,
Sure.
and I think there was a medical issue because he came from, I believe, Arizona to Texas Tech last year and played sparingly. So he's, I guess a redshirt sophomore, but didn't get to play that first season. So he's
Sure.
still very young, but progressing very nicely. Should cause some cause some issues on the defensive end, or
Disrupt a little bit.
Yeah, he can be disruptive. Like that's a good way to put it.
For sure.
And then but when you look at the stats, you'll probably think that Calk outplayed him.
Sure.
And then with Mark Adams they switch everything. Like the goal is to keep you out of the middle and to keep it to where Calk doesn't hurt us. That's the goal. That's the plan.
Yeah.
And so Bacho's not going to be on him the whole time. I would imagine McDermott's going to run some plays that's going to cause us to switch to hopefully create a mismatch, right? I mean, that's kind of standard. And so it's Mark Adams' job to work through that and devise a plan to where that's at least minimized when that happens, or allow some switching, or kind of change your switching rotation so that you switch properly as best. So it'll be definitely interesting. I would think a successful Texas Tech tournament is 2-1 in some regard, whether that's win-loss-win or win-win-loss or even loss-win-win. I think generally speaking, I think Tech fans will be okay with that, with how early in the season that it is. I don't know if Creighton's a 3-0 or bust type deal, but at the end of the day, the Maui Invitational is not the goal of Texas Tech, or excuse me, to win them. It's obviously they want to win every game. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there's a more ultimate goal at the end of the season that they're shooting for. And so right now they're just trying to improve, getting their practice and getting, Pop Isaacs, getting, we got the transfer from Oregon, Davian Harmon in there. Kevin O'Banner, of course, he was with us last year. Essentially a double guy for the most part. Bacho could be a double guy. Not quite there yet, but he's flirted with it for pretty much the whole season so far. And then you just have these other guys that are more role players. So I mean, the goal is to get as many players in double digits as you can, so we don't necessarily have a go-to guy, which can be a detriment, but it can be an asset. So it depends on if everybody is on or shooting a percentage. We have Curtin Walton that came from North Carolina, should be at least a 40% three-point shooter. Pop Isaac should shoot over 40% for the season. That's kind of the expectation. Maybe Davion Harmon, possibly. I don't know if anybody else. Kevin O'Banner's probably a little under, but he's with his size, he's a mismatch. He's not 7 foot, but to have his size shooting threes is excellent. So we'll see. So we'll see what happens. We'll root for we can root for the Blue Jays after the game.
Yeah.
For this game we'll be enemies, and then maybe we can be friends again.
Yeah, man. I mean, best of luck the rest of the way. Good luck at the game, and hopefully we'll see each other in March. I think that'd be a good time. A nice little rematch to see a barometer of where we were at the beginning of the season to the end of the season.
That's true. Yeah, I would expect Tech to be vastly improved. So Yeah. So yeah, if Tech wants to win, they're definitely going to control the turnovers. For sure. We've had 20 in two separate games, and that is nowhere near good enough. So,
Sure. Yeah.
so I'm kind of I'm expecting a loss win. That's kind of my, without knowing who I'm going to play. That's just kind of the deal. But you never know what happens. If Louisville rises up, beats Arkansas, and then we lose to Arkansas, there's not really a whole lot of shame in that, right? So
Yeah, right.
we'll,
I think the worst thing about this matchup that we have, and then you can cut me off and I'll stop talking, but the game that we play against you guys is slated for 9:30 local Hawaii time in the morning. So that is going to be a challenge for both of our teams. We'll see if wake up and get some coffee early, get yourself ready to go. That is a early time.
Yeah, that is odd, but I guess they did it for TV, obviously.
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
it's 2:30
Yep.
Central,
Correct.
I believe.
Yep.
So
You are correct.
we'll see what happens. All right, well, awesome, man. I appreciate you doing this and taking some
Absolutely.
time out and talk a little Texas Tech Creighton basketball, and we'll be tuning in on Monday, and we'll early Monday, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, and we'll chat soon. Good luck this weekend.
All right, I appreciate you.